What's up, Canucks fans? Welcome to the Line Change Podcast, a proud presentation of DraftKings Sportsbook, as well as a proud member of the Hockey Podcast Network. Be sure to check out the network for your favorite podcast covering your favorite team at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com, the home of hockey podcasts, every team, everywhere. Trade rumors galore. Then again, that is the story of the Vancouver Canucks. Right now, they are mired in trade rumors, with them being at the bottom of the standings, still trying to figure out if they're rebuilding, retooling, or rebuilding with a hybrid form. Retooling with a hybrid form. I don't know what they're doing, other than the fact that they're losing. The Canucks have yet to get a win so far here in 2026, which is good for the tank. We've already talked about the Kiefer Sherwood trade rumors ad nauseum a little bit, and I'm actually a little surprised that they haven't pulled the trigger yet. We've talked about whether or not the Canucks should sell high on Drew O'Connor. We've talked about Garland. Please don't trade Garland. Please. We've talked about Evander Kane. Although earlier today, it was reported by Rick Dollywall that the Canucks apparently phoned up the Edmonton Oilers and asked them, hey, you guys want Evander Kane back? And apparently Edmonton went, no. But, I mean, wow. By all means, please take him back. We don't want him anymore. But the purpose of this particular video is not necessarily a trade rumor per se, but a trade suggestion, if you will. I stumbled upon an article written by Stepan Roje of Canucks Army, and he suggests that the Canucks trade Marcus Pettersson and see if we can get back what we paid for him in the first place, that being, of course, a first-round pick. And whether or not he is still worth a first-round pick, because let's be honest here, Marcus Pettersson has been absolutely shit this season. Defensive blunders, only 9 points so far this season. Not that that was why we brought him here for his offense, but let's go ahead and check out this article, shall we? Let me go ahead and bring it up. Where'd it go? As the Vancouver Canucks continue to consider trading off veterans in their so-called hybrid rebuild, and as everyone else speculates about those considerations, there is one name that has been largely absent from the discussions, despite being a somewhat logical candidate for a deal. That player is Marcus Pettersson. On the surface, that makes some sense when the team acquired the now 29-year-old Pettersson from Pittsburgh last January. They signed him to a 6-year, $5.5 million AAV extension. At that point, Pettersson was clearly a part of the long-term plan in Vancouver, but here now, a full calendar year later, that long-term plan, or at least almost a full calendar year, that long-term plan sure appears to have changed, and one can't help but wonder whether Pettersson fits into that plan better as a veteran support piece or as a recast trade chip. As far as Canucks management and their outward statements are concerned, the current goal seems to be for them to hang on to all three of their veteran defenders and Pettersson, Filip Hronek, and Tyler Myers. Yeah, Filip Hronek ain't going anywhere. The thinking there is that the veteran trio lines up well with the unseasoned trio of Tom Wielander, Zeev Buium, and Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, and that maintaining the veterans will aid in the development of the youngsters. On that front, the senior Pettersson makes perhaps the most sense to hold on to. Hronek and Myers both play the right side, so if one of them were to theoretically be moved, at least the other would remain. Pettersson, however, is the only vet on the left side aside from P.O. Joseph and Derek Forbort, who may not return from injury this season. Trade Pettersson now, and the Canucks would be left with a very raw and inexperienced left side of just Buium, DPD, and Joseph. And that's a very dramatic swing for a team that started the season with Quinn Hughes over there. Then again, who cares? We don't need ICBC to tell us that the 25-26 season is a write-off. Canucks are in second to last place. They show no real signs of rebounding from there, and the situation will only presumably get worse as sell-off trades occur over the next 2 months. With Pettersson under contract for 5 more years after this one, the 25-26 season is not the only consideration here. The 26-27 season is not one to pin any hopes on either, and past that point, one has to question the whole quote-unquote mentorship angle. Buium and DPD will be that much older and more experienced by then, and there's nothing stopping the team from picking up another support vet in the interim or from developing someone else from within, someone like Kirill Kudryavtsev. Suffice to say that the period of time during which this Pettersson extension was meant to make the biggest difference now neatly aligns with the period of time during which the Canucks are expected to lose, and a lot. That should mean that the team is at least open to exploring Pettersson's trade value moving forward, as in trying to determine whether he's worth more to them as a roster player or a trade chip that has been exchanged for some future assets. And if they're considering that, the real question to be asked is whether or not Pettersson could still, at the very least, return what the Canucks paid for him. Is there a refund available here, or are they going to be relegated to the equivalent of quote-unquote store credit? When Pettersson was acquired by the Canucks, he came along with Drew O'Connor and cost the Canucks a conditional first-round pick, previous acquired from the New York Rangers in the JT Miller deal, and prospect Melvin Fernstrom. Part of the valuation, however, included the dumping of Danton Heinen and Vinny Desharnais' contracts. It's not exactly true, but close enough to say that Pettersson cost the Canucks roughly a first-rounder. First-rounder was eventually flipped once again to the Philadelphia Flyers, but ended up being used at 12th overall in the most recent draft on prospect Jack Nesbitt. What we're really asking then is if Pettersson could still return a first in his current state. When Pettersson arrived in Vancouver, he was pitched as a guaranteed top 4, borderline top pairing defender. And through his 31 games with the Canucks to close the 24-25 season, he played at about that level. Most folks were pleased with Pettersson's play in general, and the value the Canucks seemed to achieve in locking him up to a reasonable extension early. Boy, things have changed. It has to be said, however, that Pettersson's stock has dropped in 25-26. Offensively, he's averaged about 30 points a season in his NHL career, but currently just has 9 in 43 games and is thus pacing for fewer than 20. He's been outscored 23-30 at 5-on-5 play. His Corsi is at just 45.2%. Now, any struggles in Vancouver this year have to be at least partially related to the team's overall struggles, and Pettersson is still carrying his fair share of the load with an average of 20 minutes and 58 seconds a night. But if he's not the problem himself, then he hasn't been much a part of the solution. Still, one bad season does not erase a decade of top 4 play. That extension, while not as shiny as it first appeared, still rings through as having surplus value. It was signed, after all, before the salary cap leapt up this past offseason and before it leaps up again next offseason. A $5.5 million cap hit has quickly made the trip all the way to about average for a top 4 defender. Will be below average soon enough. What that means is that all Pettersson has to do is maintain his status as a top 4 throughout the next 5 years for his contract to have fair value. Anything better than that is gravy, and this becomes especially true when the teams who might consider trading for Pettersson consider their options. There are never really all that many quality defenders available in any given trade market, and moving forward to acquire a player of Pettersson's ilk through free agency is definitely going to cost the team more than $5.5 million per year. Put that together with some of Pettersson's more specific skills like penalty killing, leadership, and throwing the occasional devastating hit, one has to imagine that if the Canucks were offering him around there, would be some interesting suitors. To return the equivalent of the 12th overall pick may still be a bridge too far at this point. That's a very valuable asset, but what if the Canucks are still looking for just a first-round pick in general? That seems to be a lot more doable, and that would probably still feel like the Canucks getting their worth from the whole series of transactions. But would it be worth their while? Probably. First-round picks are gold to even a hybrid rebuilding team, and they remain lottery picks. Any mid to late first, like the one the Canucks are currently holding from the Minnesota Wild, has a chance to be an impact player, but they also have a decent chance of busting, and having multiple mid to late firsts, however, increases the odds of at least one of them hitting. The Canucks need some hits more than anything right now. Pettersson's own potential as a mentor and as a stabilizer, perhaps even as someone who can continue to play meaningful minutes toward the end of his contracts as the Canucks become more competitive, cannot be discounted. But those are qualities that don't necessarily need to come from Pettersson, and especially not if he can be cashed in for something the Canucks need right now. We mentioned Forbort already. Canucks got a very good year out of Forbort in 24-25, became a star penalty killer, played nearly every night, and earned himself a raise. And last year he did it all for the low price of $1.5 million. There is nothing really stopping the Canucks from trading Pettersson now and then seeking out some lower cost veterans via free agency to cover any further desire for experience and leadership on their blue line. Might be have your cake and eat it too scenario. That makes it sound like something well worth exploring. After all, Who doesn't like cake? So there's that article. As always great stuff from Stéphane Roger. Absolutely love his articles. They're so, fun to read and whatnot. But let's, before we go any further and break everything down that we just read, I'm going to do my mid-show sponsor read as I thank my main and primary sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sportsbook partner, of the NHL. Never experienced the jaw-dropping moments that make hockey? Well, you can experience them all with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Missouri listeners, listen up. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in the Show Me State. New customers, this one's for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN, that's code THPN, to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-9777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Pass-through per wager may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. This is a limited time offer. Copyright NHL 2025. All rights reserved. I'd like to thank my secondary sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of this amazing artwork you see in front of you and the amazing artwork that you usually see behind my shoulder. And you guys can check them out yourselves at GassyJackArt.com. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, get into this article and break it down. So as we mentioned, Stéphane Roger asked the question, does Marcus Pettersson still hold the same value that he had when we acquired him, or has his value plummeted due to how bad of a season he's having? Would another team benefit from acquiring a guy like Marcus Pettersson? And here's the kicker. Would Alpine and Rutherford even do it? Consider he was one of their handpicked guys. Like, they wanted Marcus Pettersson badly and were willing to pay a first-round pick to get him. Granted, it was a protected first-round pick. There's another side to the coin, though. If Marcus Pettersson is, traded, that leaves a bit of a gaping hole on the left side, as what Stéphane Roger mentioned in his article. We've already had a bit of a hole with the departure of Quinn Hughes. And it's pretty much young guys in Buyum, DPD. He mentioned Kudrayatsev in his article. You could call him up. But I really want to know what you guys think. Should the Canucks float the idea of trading Marcus Pettersson and seeing if they can fetch a first-round pick for him? Do you think Rutherford and Albion will even consider such a move? Or do you want to keep MP3 or MP29 for the rebuild and help the younger defensemen we have now out? Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. Also, go ahead, check out the Line Change merchandise store. I've added some new merch. It's our 1-year anniversary collection, which is now available. As you can see from the picture there, it's complete with the newly redesigned logo that we have, both in blue and green, as well as the skate colors, which I call our skate version of the logo. You guys can check them all out, and we do have some deals going on as well. So go ahead and check it out, thelinechangepodcast.threadless.com. Also, if you want to be a part of the discussion and have, discussions such as this one about guys like Marcus Pettersson, trade rumors, and all that fun stuff, join our official Discord. There is a link in the description down below. It's completely free to join, so go ahead and do that. Also, you can find and interact with us on social media. We're everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, even Blue Sky. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. Also, if you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us on either platform, as it's greatly appreciated and it really helps out the podcast. Also, you know what else helps out the podcast? Downloading your favorite episode. That helps out the podcast as well. So go ahead and do that. If there's an episode that you absolutely loved and want to listen to on repeat, go ahead and download it. Once again, it really helps out the podcast. So I very much appreciate it. But that's going to do it for me in this video. A little bit of a shorter one. But once again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And as always, let's go Canucks. And I'll catch you guys next time.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.